Everybody, how you doing? I'm Paps, a racing VTuber and an artist, and today we're going to be continuing the fan art of Faust from Guilty Gear Strive that we started last week. Now, let me tell you something. I don't get why people keep complaining about us not having discovered time travel yet, when video editing as a hobby exists. I've just spent like the last, hour and a half doing video edits, and it's felt like 15 minutes. Anyway, something that's been bothering me about this since last time, something that's been bothering me about this piece since last time is the lack of perspective on it, because I feel like while this is good, it's very flat. It's a very flat piece so far. So I want to introduce a little bit of something with it. A couple of things mainly. So first, flipping the wrist around like so. And then maybe a little bit of this, and a little bit of this. And here's the clever part. What we're going to do is, well, first of all, we're going to need to hide all these, because we're starting from scratch is a harsh way to put it, but it's certainly going to be a little bit of a setback. But I sincerely believe it'll be worth it. All right, so here's what we do. First, we get this cube in here, right? And here's the clever bit. We flatten out this cube so that it becomes a pole. Oh, there we go. But yeah, video editing is such a time-consuming process, and I have fun with it, is the thing. I actually kind of enjoy video editing. There's something kind of interesting about it, just going back, seeing what works, what doesn't, having that kind of aspect of, I don't know how to put it, like, creative iteration? Is that the right term? But yeah, I enjoy video editing. However, I do recognize that it is time consuming, especially if I try to opt for stuff like, adding subtitles as well. I try to add, I added subtitles to a few of the clips that I have, right? I put up a couple of clips on social media sometimes, and to those I'll try to add subtitles where I can, because I don't know, for me it's a quality of life thing. Like if I was watching that video, I would enjoy having subtitles. Not to mention, sometimes I talk either rather quickly or in a way that's not easy to parse, and that also makes it advantageous to, hold up, gotta move this guy around here. That also makes it advantageous to, what the heck? Right. Yeah, that also makes it advantageous because, I'm not going to assume that everybody who watches what I do is going to be like a first language English speaker. To be fair, I'm not a first language English speaker. First language English? English first language. That would be the one. Yeah, English first language. I remember when I was a kid, I had to take English second language classes. Those were a blast. I had a really nice teacher for those, so I think that really helped me to ease into learning English. Now I just resent it on a matter of principle, but I would have resented it emotionally as well if it wasn't for the good teachers that helped me to learn it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I learned it when I was still young, but I picked up English way easier than I think anybody was expecting me to. Which is funny because literally every other language I have tried to learn in any capacity has been like pulling teeth. I tried learning a couple of other languages. That ones that wind up even come in handy at some point, but did not click. Unfortunately, they just did not. No, they did not click. I don't know. I got decent at a couple of them. Definitely not like conversationalist kind of decent, but decent enough to like ask for where the bathroom is. That's all you need, really. I remember reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy at one point, and the author of the book, Douglas Adams, is really good at comedic writing, and a lot of his comedic timing and sense of humor has kind of trickled down to my own sense of humor and how I structure my own jokes. What I enjoyed about there was one bit where he was talking about, he was doing a quick chat in the book. It was like a little sidebar where he was discussing the progression of a civilization. And I think it went through the what, why, and where stages. The what, why, and where. So first is the survivalist stage, right? The very, very beginnings of the civilization. You don't have a lot of resources. You don't have a lot of people. So the answer is what? What do we eat? What do we eat? Are we going to be able to catch something tonight? Are we going to be able to farm for sustenance in some way? What are we going to eat? Then comes the why stage. At this point, you've established a little bit more of your civilization. You've maybe created some larger cities. You've had a chance to establish agriculture, commerce, education. So now you can spend a little bit more time on more wide-ranging questions. For example, why do we eat? That's not a question you think about often, right? Why do we eat? Well, we need to eat to live. But then why do we do that? Why? That's the kind of philosophical stage. The way I'm positioning this pinky reminds me a lot of when somebody tries to hold a tea mug with the pinky out for the politeness. Reminiscent of this. But yeah, you get to the philosophical stage, and that's the kind of thing you ask. Why do these things happen? Why does the world around us work the way it does? And then finally, once you've passed the philosophical stage, you've reached kind of this enlightened state of civilization. It's the where. As in, where shall we have lunch? Which I always thought was a clever twist at the very end there. The punchline obviously being, okay, they've kind of solved the big questions of their civilization. Now all they need to do is kind of kick back and enjoy the fruits of their mental and physical labor. So yeah, that's the what, why, and where stages of civilization per Douglas Adams. To be fair, he contextualizes this in the sense of galactic civilizations. I gotta reread The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy at some point. I imagine some parts of it didn't age super well. It's like a book from what was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy made? I remember it was originally a radio play. So it can't have been that old. 1978. Yeah, that's definitely enough time for things to not age well. Let's see. I also remember another part where the protagonists were trying to bullshit their way out of a deadly situation. So what ended up happening was that the protagonists were on this alien ship that belonged to a race of just really big jerks. That was their ecological niche, was just being the biggest douchebags on their planet. They were called the Vogons, right? And what Vogons did as a method of torture was to read their captives their poetry. And the poetry was just so inane and utterly boring and offensive that it was like a mimetic kill agent. These dudes had poetry so boring that it literally bored you and repulsed you to death. Which I think would actually make it a rather fascinating piece of art to consume, if only once. Yeah, once and that's it. Maybe you save it as as a palate cleanser for once you finish with all the other forms of art that you need to consume. That reminds me of this one joke I read one time where somebody was like, okay, what was the joke? Apparently gasoline has a lot of calories in it, and this guy was like, what that means, right? If you drink a little bit of gasoline, you'll never have to eat again for your entire life. And then somebody chimed in and was like, strictly speaking, you are 100% correct. Good God. Gasoline has always been one of those things where I get super nervous around it. Not even, at the gasoline pump, if it's in like a jerry can or something. I don't know. It throws me off a little bit. It's an unpredictable material. Okay, and then what we do is we grab this, extend this, extend this, extend this. And then for the coup d'etat, or coup de grace, no, this would be a little bit higher actually, and like this. Do I still have the references? Okay, those are for his clean kicks. We don't need those right now. Here we go. All right, let's take a look-see. Yeah. No, I've mentioned this before. I'm really glad that I don't try to knock out pieces in one stream for the most part anymore. It's obviously there's benefits to it. There's that sense of accomplishment. There's that sense of, job well done. But it is, a lot of pressure. It's a lot of rushing. It's a lot of deadline meeting. It's weird to think of it as a deadline if you're just kind of doing it in one sitting. But there is a kind of strange pressure to it, and I really don't feel like I deliver my best in the span of 3 hours, which is, 100% fair. Okay, here we go. Why does Faust have the shot of Pfizer just hanging around right there between his legs? What is with that phallic placement, my man? What's the big idea? Let's see. Dude, that being said, the vaccines in the Guilty Gear world must be insane. There's you can get in the Guilty Gear world. You can probably get vaccinated for stuff that we don't even have here yet. In Guilty Gear, okay. I don't know. What is the state of medical science in the Guilty Gear universe? I've seen some dudes. I mean, obviously Faust is a doctor, but I don't think he qualifies. I don't ever believe that man's ever been to medical school. I don't know. Does Faust actually have a medical license? A valid medical license? He must have lost it when he went through being Dr. Baldhead, right? Like I don't imagine after turning out to be a serial killer, they let you keep your medical license. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they're desperate enough. I don't know. The cast of Guilty Gear, if nothing else, perhaps not the world, but the cast itself seems to be rather blasé about murder. At least they seem to be. I don't know. I think there's like a sliding scale of people who are down with murder and those who aren't in the Guilty Gear world. Like, for example, I fully believe May would be down to kill someone. But I don't think maybe Delilah, for example, would be down for that. I'm sure it's probably part of some of their tragic backstories. In the meantime, let's just extend some of these straps to kind of reach where we need them to go. There we go. Perfect. Then let's call this part legs. I was whining earlier about video editing, but I am having fun with it. I every time I get a little bit of an increase in my workflow. Yeah, I think editing the shorter clips that I've put around, and also doing, meme clips like that one Grimace Shake one that I did a little while back. I feel like those have helped me grow, or at least get my skills to a level where now I can feasibly do much of what I wanted to do. Okay, let's see. So what we're going to do here is a little bit of movie magic. We're going to grab his, I want to say, left arm. This is the left, right? Yeah, that's the left arm. So I'm going to call this part arm. All right, let's start. First comes the hand. Big hand. Big hands, McMike. Huge hands. I think I remember seeing a tweet from the creator of Phineas and Ferb the other day where he was like, I think like Phineas and Ferb is officially like 16 years old. Like the series is 16 years old now. And he was like, I'm making new episodes. Stop making me feel old. If that is true, though, that they are making new episodes still, that is an impressive degree of longevity for a Disney animated series. Okay, and then like this. Okay, spread it out like this, and then like this. We're not 100% following the model, by the way. I'm not sure if that was clear. We're not going to 100% follow the 3D model because I want to party hard, and the 3D model is preventing me from doing so. Listen, sometimes to live your best life, you have to carve out your own path. This is true of playing golf and also for drawing. Man, I do wonder how mad the people who take care of a golf course get if you're not playing in like the intended path. Like, do they ban you for that? I don't know. I've never played golf. I've never gone golfing. I know some dudes in my office who do golf. I remember they were actually talking a little bit about the price of like a beginner set of clubs the other day when I was in the office. So I do wonder how seriously the certain rules are enforced. I mean, for example, I know some golfers, right? I've seen. I don't know if this might just be like a thing that I saw in a movie that's just like a parody that people don't actually do, but it's believable enough that they might, and that's where the comedy of it is. I've seen movie bits where like they taste a little bit of the golf course before they putt, right? I guess they were checking the idea that they're checking for moisture content or something in the soil. Which makes sense because that could actually have a lot of impact on, say, how firm the ball holdy thingy. The peg? Would that be what it's called? The peg. That thing that holds the ball in place when you're about to hit it. It might actually determine how firmly that thing can be on the ground, and therefore how hard you can swing at it. It always seemed a little counterintuitive to me that sometimes in order to go faster, you need to go slower. Like with ice driving, for example. If you think about how fast, say, a car's wheels are moving. It's actually safer and faster for them to move a little bit slower and rotate a little bit slower during the wintertime, because that way they have a little bit of a better chance to get a grip on the ice and propel themselves forward the way God intended. Let's see. Yeah, that forearm muscle is like way too big. We're gonna need to trim that down. Okay, bring this thing back. But yeah, I was talking about the things that you might be allowed to do on a golf course. How much of the field can you eat before it's socially unacceptable? Right? Because like when I saw those dudes taking bites out of the field, I was like, all right, what happens if every single one of those guys does that? What if you just invite everybody to a tournament? You know, you're feeling pretty great. The catering got here on time. There was a little bit of a mix up with the music component. You know, that you wanted to have like yeah, you wanted them to play that one song 4 minutes and 33 seconds in order to let the players have their concentration, but they instead mistook it for another, you know, trap remix of that song, and it was a whole disaster. But you managed to sort it out in time. And all of a sudden, you see the first guy, you know, line up to take a shot, and he's doing a little hip wiggle. He's like getting down on the ground, making sure that the terrain is level. You nod in agreement that this man knows what he's doing. He scoops up just a tiny bit of dirt, maybe a little too much. You know, maybe a little bit too much for it to be reasonable. You know, you only need a couple crumbs in order to test the moisture and everything. But this guy maybe grabs like a spoonful, bit too much dirt. He grabs a little bit too much dirt. Puts it in his mouth, rolls it around a little, does not spit it out for some reason. And you're like, okay, this guy must be this guy is passionate. This guy is like a real professional. You know, real pros don't eat the dirt. Real pros eat the dirt that they've scooped off of the ground. They are grateful for Mother Nature's bounty, and they show that respect by finishing the dirt that they've taken out of the ground. He almost gets a hole in one the first shot. Everybody goes wild within measure because it is golf. You know, very polite little claps. Second guy steps up into the. I was about to call it a batting plate. I don't know what it's called when like the place where you're supposed to start a golf thing. I don't know. Not batting plate, certainly. Starting point? Let's call it base. You know, let's call it the base. You know, the second guy steps up to the base. He also seems pretty confident in himself. He's also doing the same thing as the first guy. He's just checking around. You know, he gives us a quick flick to his thumb with his tongue, and he just kind of like tests where the wind direction is coming from. He's reading the air. He's almost like looking out a little bit into the clouds, and he's like, okay. And then he also leans down and scoops another handful of dirt and puts it directly in his mouth. Eats it. Nobody comments. The game goes on. At this point, you're starting to think, okay, two guys who eat dirt. That's weird, right? Like that's not normal. But you know, you're a spectator in all this. You are the organizer. You're not commentating or anything. You just have to keep quiet a little bit. You know, you're the owner of this joint, but you know, you got to let the players play. That's what everybody's here to see. Third guy steps up, for some reason pulls out a sextant to read the weather. You don't even know if this guy's an actual golfer. He's come dressed here in like jeans and a Hard Rock Cafe tank top. You don't know what his deal is. He also leans down and scoops a little bit of dirt into his mouth. You start to get a little nervous. This is a lot of people eating a lot of the precious dirt that you've cultivated. And, you know, probably shipped from Dubai or something. I don't know how golf courses work. And almost all of them are taking a little bite out of your field. And you start sweating a little bit, and so you check the number of contestants lined up for the day, you know, to see just how many dudes are here to take a bite of the dirt out of your field. You take a look, and the list has 60 participants. By the end of the day, there is a small hole in the ground, perhaps big enough to fit a watermelon, from all the guys that have scooped out a little bit of dirt. Some of them brought a spoon. What do you do with your life at that point? Do you just try to forget what you saw? I don't think I could. Anyway, this has been story time. Let's see. Yeah, I need to work. I could have workshopped that one a little bit more. That one didn't really have a punchline besides the kind of ridiculous mental image of there being a watermelon-sized hole in the ground. Maybe I could have escalated it a little bit more. Maybe one of the dudes brings in an excavator. What do you do when like the dude with the caterpillar shows up and says, "Now this is my golf cart, custom made, very nice, don't you agree?" Okay. Anyway, we're drawing this Looney Tunes glove here. Yeah, I think maybe that's why golf courses are so big, and why mini golf courses, to combat this, also are so small and made of plastic. That defeats the risk and possibility of one of the dudes just being one of the notorious dirt eaters, whose forbidden techniques have rocked the world of golf since the Middle Ages. They can't eat plastic, but if they need to eat, they can only take a handful of dirt at a time. And that's a drop in the bucket compared to like the 18 acres of dirt that you have. The real trick is not letting them gather en masse. They're much like wild deer in this way. Yeah. I know my parents have been telling me about this rabbit that they saw recently. My dad's been getting into gardening recently, and he is mortified of the little guy. Not because he's afraid of animals in general, but because he knows that rabbits wreak havoc on gardens. I don't know. The little guy seems to have been pretty chill so far, though. I reckon as long as he doesn't start any trouble, he should be fine. Wabbits. Hey, buddy. Ooh, those wascally wabbits. I have always wondered, why is Bugs Bunny? It's a little weird that the modern perception of the mythological trickster figure is a cartoon rabbit. In a lot of different folklore, the de facto mythological trickster takes the form of a fox. Why a fox? I don't actually know. But like I do know that in at least in Japan, for example, the fox does have like that deal of being like the mischief maker. I think in some European ones as well. Like there's a story for Fanart the fox who is decidedly not Japanese and is still kind of a little shithead. I've given this guy too much bicep. Shrink that sucker down, sir. I do like that the liquefy tool now lets me just like slurp out musculature like some kind of weird mosquito. There's actually an African mythology of a trickster rabbit. Wow, okay, now I stand corrected. How about that? The African trickster rabbit. Very nice. Let me Google that actually. What's the little guy's name? Let's see. Stories of black slaves that got told. Oh, maybe misremembering. Okay, so so it was during the diaspora. Okay, yeah, the Brer Rabbit, an abbreviation of Brother Rabbit. I see. Interesting. I've heard of that little guy before, but I didn't know that was. I didn't know the actual story. I didn't know that he was a mythological figure. I remember something on the wiki of mythology of rabbits. Yeah, I know that in East Asian countries, rabbits are associated with the moon. Although how that association came to be, beats me. I mean, how does anything get associated with anything else? I guess the moon is white and rabbits are also white, so it makes sense on that basis? I don't know. Anthropology is kind of whack. In a good way, The thing is, right, a lot of anthropology, I imagine, is a lot of like you needed to have been there moments that we just kind of need to cope with, right? Just a little guy, just a sweet little fella who can jump to the moon and came from the stars. Let's see. Okay. And bang, bang. Boom. I think I just asked this question. Yeah, no, okay. So Faust's bag isn't crinkle cut. Okay, there we go. And then like this. Perfect. Yeah. I don't think I have what it takes to become a mythological trickster figure. I can be kind of a nuisance, but I wouldn't call myself a trickster. I'm like a mythological inconvenience figure at most. I'm like that Snorlax who blocked your way in Pokemon. A lot of people hate on that Snorlax for blocking your way, but like, bro is just napping. He is just chilling. You're the one who tried to interrupt him. Let's see. He's just Eepy. He just wanted a little nap nap. Is that so wrong? Is that such a crime? Is a Pokemon not entitled to his rest? Well, he is kind of just blocking major traffic, unfortunately, so it's a little bit harder to defend him on that ground. How often of an occurrence is that like some old guy just had a flute lying around that to go wake up sleeping Pokemon? Like, is that just a reason? Is in the Pokemon world, is a sleeping Pokemon in the middle of a highway like a sufficient reason to call out of work that day? Like, is it a believable thing? It's like saying, yeah, traffic on the I-95 was just absolute hell today. I'm not going to be able to come in on time. Sorry, boss. Like, unlike regular traffic caused by like a stray cow or something, if you try to disturb a Pokemon that's supposed to be sleeping, it can hyper beam you. Like, if there's a tree on your that's fallen down and it's blocking the highway, that's one thing. The tree does not have a beam attack that it can shoot at you with force. Sort of a plot point in black and white with new updates. Oh, interesting. I need to finish Black and White someday. Everybody says that that's like the best story. It has the best like stuff. It definitely has the best pixel artwork. I remember being just absolutely floored by just the amount and consistency of quality in the pixel art sprites. That was back when the Pokemon Company wasn't pushing out a new game every year. Let the artists cook. Let them rest. I've always wondered to what extent the different art divisions in Game Freak overlapped. Like, do most of the artists who work on the game also work on like the trading card game? I love people who are really passionate about the Pokemon trading card game. Just in the same way that I am super fond of people who are super into like Yu-Gi-Oh. I have no idea what they're talking about. I have never played the Pokemon card game before in my life. At least not with the proper rule set. But you know how it is. Yeah. If you get deep enough into any kind of side hobby or gaming thing, you start to like, especially as an outsider looking in, you start to recognize how silly some of it can be. Like, so I remember somebody showing a picture. Hang on, let me Google this. Right, in fighting games, right, you have a lot of what can be described as moves which have an advantage over others. And in a lot of cases, some character has like a really solid move that they can just bust out whenever. Let's see. Which one is it? I remember Soul Bad Guy had one, but essentially everybody's like, this is like a world ending move. If you see this, it is so unfair. It is so over. You are screwed for life. And then you actually see what it is, and it's just this. It's just a normal right hook. And for some reason, this is just monstrous. Yeah, I don't know. I do know that hooks are supposed to be a very potent tool in a boxer's kit. I always remember that they're like a little bit in between like being extremely useful and being kind of risky, as is like a lot of different things in boxing, right? Okay, and then over here. There we go. Okay, now that has some juicy perspective to it. Now I'm just gonna. Not sure. I kind of want to bump it around a little bit with the liquefy tool. Then like this right here. Being versatile with the liquefy tool has really helped me step up my game, I feel. I mean, it has obvious benefits, right? But it's got a lot. It's got a lot to offer, and I like that. See, and then down here. But yeah, as I was saying, once you get deep enough into a hobby, you can, and especially if you don't also have friends in that hobby, it really makes you take a step back because you find something that is just so deeply offensive to you that is just incomprehensible to anyone else. And I do think that that is an important thing to have. If everybody managed to share the same worries, the world would explode under stress. Okay, we'll shrink down this part right here. Right where the wrist is with the glove. Move this like so that it doesn't look like it's a broken arm. Expand the glove right here. Yeah, that feels good. Okay, now we move on to the actual inking. Now we had a start on the head back here, but I do wonder if that's going to be something we can reuse. Let's just do it again. We'll keep that around, but we'll just do it again. I've been thinking about trying something out to make a little bit more variance with the line width as well, but that's going to need to wait until the coloring stage. Nah, 14 is too thick. How about a lucky 7? Heck, we'd probably go lower. How about 5? A nice prime number. You know, I can say nice things about a lot of things. You know, 3 is very satisfying, 7 is lucky. But I think five's main thing is being the definition of a prime number. You know, 3's got a lot of other stuff going on. We don't talk about 3. 3 already has enough time in the limelight. The true prime number connoisseurs will understand the inherent appeal of the number 5. You know, and it's not like it doesn't have anything going on, right? You know, you've got 5 fingers and toes. You've got 5. Actually, I think that's all we have in terms of like 5s. The human body is supposed to be pretty symmetrical. I remember it's some kind of property called chirality, which is shared with a lot of mammals. At least I think that's what it's called. Let me double check the meaning of chirality. Because I think it just means, yeah. Chirality is a property of a symmetry important in several branches of science. The word chirality is derived from the Greek chair, hand, a familiar chiral object. An object or system is chiral if it is indistinguishable from its mirror image. That is, it cannot be superimposed onto it. Oh, I'm sorry, it says distinguishable from its mirror image. So essentially, your hands are symmetrical in one way, but if you were to take a picture of both your palms and superimpose them on top of one another, they wouldn't fit. They would not be congruent. So in a lot of ways, the human body is symmetrical, but in a lot of other ways, it's really, really not. I mean, your organs alone. Eesh. It always pissed me off a little bit that your organs weren't symmetrical. You know, yeah, I know. What are we going to do with 2 hearts and 2 livers and 2 pancreases and 2 what's that thing that holds your bile? I think it's still the liver. Anyway, the point is, there's not a whole lot of organs that we get a lot of mileage out of. What are you going to do with 4 kidneys, for example? You're going to digest more water? You're going to hydrate faster? Get off it. Come on. You can do that without an extra pair of kidneys. Gallbladder, that's the one. Thank you, Bunny. Yeah, the gallbladder's the one with the bile. My ass would not make it as a medieval doctor. All my other peers would be all a buzz and a titter with news of brand new and exciting leech techniques. Meanwhile, I would look at it like a little puddle of blood, and I'd be like, ew, ew, ew. I would not be able to do that. I hardly like blood when it's mine. And my own blood is very important to me. I only have so much of it to go around. My delicious, precious rice blood. Speaking of rice biology, I've recently realized something that makes the fact that I've made the sun a secondary motif for me kind of funny. If you think about it, rice is one of the few plants that doesn't really need the sun to start growing. Because when you initially plant rice, you do it underwater. Rice is planted underwater. So if you think about it, for the first little bit, it does eventually need to peek out and greet the sun. But in general, in order to germinate, it's one of the few plants that doesn't need that kind of sunlight. Well, no, most plants don't need sunlight to germinate. What they need it for is to grow. But rice has a little bit of growth in it without needing the sunlight. Well, no, that's not true. Every plant that germinates has that title to claim. They also need to grow just a little bit without sunlight. Although I do reckon there are plants that are very sunlight needy relative to others. Real diva plants. It reminds me a little bit of that one bit from The Little Prince where they have a rose that's very delicate. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Okay, and then like this. No, something about this isn't right. Let me take a look at the reference real quick. Oh, right, that's how it worked. Okay, bring that in. Perfect. Okay. No, that would actually have to be flipped the other way, wouldn't it? At least I think so. Hmm. Okay, if we expand this line just a little bit, that should get us just to where we need to go. As for the rest of these, we can just kind of continue them along their natural path. Okay, over there. Okay, we'll fix that up in the color in the shading stage a little bit. Then next part would probably be the shoulder blade over here. We could probably bring up the what do you call it, the collar here. Just a touch. I was trying to say touch and tad at the same time, and boy, did that not work out. Yeah, I don't know why that happens. I feel like a lot of the times where I'm clumsy with my wording, and where I feel like I just have not gotten the hang of speaking like a human being yet, is that sometimes I'll try to use one turn of phrase, but then suddenly have to sub it in for another. And I don't even know why I do it. It just kind of happens. It's almost. I feel like it's almost as though I'm double checking myself a little bit. That's kind of what it feels like. Like each time I'm about to use a turn of phrase, it's like I try to find another one that might be more suitable right before I hit send. Hmm. You know, other times I've said that when I stream, I don't really think too much about what I say a lot of the time. I do. There are moments where I have to be very considerate with my words and try to think about like what I'm trying to say, and I try to articulate it in a way that I find useful, if nothing else. But there are other times where I just kind of keep going. Like earlier, I was talking about dudes who eat golf fields as a party trick, and that's kind of a natural result of one of those tangents. I feel like at that point, it's not even fair to call it a tangent. It's just the way the conversation has gone. We're still on track, just going to a weird place. The train is still departing and arriving at the intended time. We're just passing through a weird part of town. Dude, I wish more trains went to weird places. We need to be able to have one of those farming life simulator experiences where we can just hop on a train, go somewhere weird, and just assert ourselves as the new residents of that place. Ever since I heard the phrase "assert themselves" used in the context of just two dudes arriving in town in Undertale, I've liked using it in a lot of contexts where that just doesn't make sense. Is a bit harsh of a way to put it, but in places where you wouldn't expect. Not to mention, saying I'm about to assert myself as a threat is kind of a funny idea. There was a post I saw, and it's either you're going on an adventure or a stranger comes to town. True, true. Yeah, sometimes listen, some days you're the wanderer archetype, and sometimes you're the guy that kind of fills in the wanderer on what's been going on down or around town. You're either being given the tutorial or giving the tutorial. I don't think that's a bad thing, though. You learn and you teach others. It's a comfortable kind of cycle. For once, I'd like to see a farming sim where you're like trying, where you're. I recently heard about this one farming sim that's a little bit, obviously there's like farming sim elements, but there's also like murder mystery elements. Like for like it's like a randomized murderer each time, or it's like a murder mystery story at the same time as like a Stardew Valley like farming sim. And that's spicy. That's interesting. But what I kind of want to see is a story where like you're the old hand, and the NPCs are all like complete dinguses who don't know how to manage themselves in a farming simulator. Like you'll see one of them like running around at like the middle of the night, passed out in somebody's garbage because they went to the dungeons for too long. Yeah, you got to figure it out before everybody gets got. I didn't even notice that the stethoscope had a special design as well. That's pretty cool, though. I like that. To keep it 100% real with you, I would not survive a small town murder mystery. I don't know. I feel like I would have really poor timing for that sort of thing. And like and like some Yoshikage Kira wannabe, some kind of Scooby Doo villain will be like trying to put a body in the dumpster, and I'll be like, "Oh hey Pat, oh hey Fred, how you doing? You take out the garbage? Oh dear God!" And well, then they got to silence the witness. I would be like the character who is usually the comic relief who is murdered halfway through the story in order to ramp up the tension and remove kind of any elements of easygoingness. You know, I feel like that would be my ideal role. I am definitely not horror movie final girl material. I am a martial artist, though. I do. My other thing is martial arts, so maybe I would have like some kind of. I might have a chance. I might have a chance. I'm not saying I do, but like, well, unless the killer has a weapon, in which case I'm just well and truly boned. Listen, martial arts is strong, but nobody's awakened the technique to surefire stop a knife or a bullet yet. Or at least if they have, they're keeping very quiet about it. Bro, why are you even wearing a stethoscope? You've got a bag for a head. You ain't listening to anything, big fella. Well, the same could be said for me and my headphones. If I wear a headset, it's not really doing anything for me. I ain't got no ears, no nose, no ears, no eyes. All I got going for me is my big mouth, and boy, do I use that a lot. I got to make up for the deficit. I don't have a lot of other. I'm like if a mole didn't have ears. Moles have ears, don't they? They definitely do. No way those fuzzy little guys are purely relying on just sensation. Ain't no way. I don't know. I don't know enough about moles to decide whether or not that is accurate, though. Maybe moles are more hardcore than I thought. They are burrowing creatures. They must be able to brave the depths themselves. Oh yeah, speaking of interesting things that are coming out soon, three different games that I'm kind of personally interested in are coming out soon. On Guard, which is a Spanish fencing game. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which apparently drops tomorrow, which is impressive. I'm not. I wasn't under the impression that that game was ever coming out. Much like a lot of things that try to ape off of Jet Set Radio. It's a little bit uncharitable saying that, it's just a Jet Set Radio clone. But they have definitely leaned into it for the marketing, so I don't feel ashamed saying that. Yeah. Is it really reductive if the folks who are developing it themselves are trying to market it that way? I don't know. There's a little bit of artists. There's a thing about artists' pride, right? Like you kind of want the thing that you make to stand on its own 2 feet. But it's also important to recognize that not a lot of people will have patience to explore something wholly new. So that's why things like saying, "Oh, it's like this," or "It's like this, but that." Those are useful phrases that can be helpful with marketing, but can also harm your end product. It's all about finding the right balance between your identity and theirs. I reckon that's how it is, at least. And then there's people like me who just straight up try to use some other motifs in their own writing. Like, very recently, I have an OC universe, as do a lot of people, right? A lot of people have OCs. That doesn't make me particularly special. Mine is set in like a supernatural version of the Midwest. And very recently, I realized that one, a lot of my characters were like missing parts, right? Like one character has a lot of memories missing, and he doesn't have a whole lot of luck trying to get the memories back. There's another dude who just doesn't feel particularly passionate. There's a girl who like needs the courage to really break away from her whole family. And I realized, hey, wait a minute. That sounds a little bit like the things in The Wizard of Oz. A dude who's brainless, a dude who's heartless, and some dude who's spineless. For a matter of speaking. And it's interesting being able to borrow and lean on other people's works and ideas, because a lot of stuff is still going to be like wildly different, right? Like the setting, the kind of progression of everything is still going to be like wildly different. But it's still kind of interesting being able to make those connections among different pieces. Or rather, that's the way that helps me to come up with original stuff for my stories. Ironically enough, is thinking, okay, what are the things that I absolutely want? What does this remind me of? Are there any kind of real life examples of this, or kind of things that I can lean on? And if there are, how can I put my own spin on it? That's kind of that is kind of like how my creative process goes for writing. I always want to see if somebody's done it first. I always want to see if somebody's done it first, so I can see if I can, one, do it better, or if not, at least two, do it in a way that I think I would enjoy more as a reader. Or not even enjoy more as a reader, just something that I kind of want to see. It's probably kind of a selfish way of doing it, right? Like, you got to write for yourself first and foremost. So I think in that regard, I'm living my best life. I should use ovals for this. That being said, where do I put them? All right, let's see. Redraw line width. Where's that? Ah, here we go. Okay, let's see here. Okay. And over here. A little bit up, a little bit to the left. Perfect. Okay, and then like this, like this. Okay, right here, right here. You know, I've always wondered why stethoscopes were more effective than those things that look like trumpets. I always figured that because of sound had to travel farther, it was more inefficient some way. I don't know. Maybe it's got something to do with acoustics or something. I think a lot of the different kind of gadgets and gizmos that we've made over the years to listen to other people's heartbeats are all kind of unique and cool in their own interesting ways. Although for every kind of like neat and kind of cool old medicinal gadget we have, there are like 5 more which are completely abhorrent and terrifying. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. You got a trade-off there. I remember one time this podcast that I used to listen to did an episode on the history of dentistry in America, and oh boy, not great. Never ask a woman her age, a man his salary, or dentists in the mid 1800s how they got teeth out. You do not want to know. Let's see. Does that make sense? Oh, this little line here makes me angry, though. This'll do. I just need to drop it. Let me draw some of these as well. Okay, there we go. Alrighty. Okay, put this here, put this over here. Okay, flatten this part out. Flatten this part out. Oh my, there's two of them. Okie dokie. Then, Bart Son, how are we for time? We're not too great on time, but we can get there. I believe a miracle can happen. Control point at control point right here. And that'll do it. Okay, so that's a stethoscope done. Then next, the rest of the shirt. Okay, then like this. I didn't mean to make that in this bottom part quite so flat. But, It actually makes a bit of sense, doesn't it? Okay, then over here. Over here. There we go. Okay. No, okay, this will just be an extension of it. Alright, I guess I'll just have to roll. Okay. I almost got scared by his original sprite down there. He's just chilling back there. I shouldn't have gotten scared. Hmm. No, that's not quite right. Like that. So maybe like this. Hang on. Crunchy wrists. Gotta remember to stretch these puppies out. I don't draw. Well, no, I draw pretty often, but I don't think I draw often and at sufficient length to seriously need to like worry about it, putting legit intervals between drawing in like my drawing sessions. I don't know. You can't be too careful though. Sometimes my wrist gets a little. I don't know what the word is. Like I can sense that it's time to stretch it out a little. Itchy? No, that's not quite the right word. It gets tired. It gets tired, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it needs a rest. My old man ligaments need a moment of respite. Okay, then over here. Then like this. I'm gonna move the little belt link up here, just a little bit further up, because I feel like it doesn't make sense for it to wrap around his arm like that. Hmm. I do like that the design for Faust has, the kind of same. I don't know. Strive has really stepped up the series design in a way that I really enjoy. A lot of there's like this very specific style of quote unquote anime clothing that mainly occurred around the turn of the century. And this is like when we started to see like the more ridiculous Final Fantasy outfits. Like they've started returning to be more sensible. Like if you look at like Final Fantasy 16, for example, those outfits are downright practical. But like if you go back then and you look at like Final Fantasy 10, for example, you go look at the ones from like that era, and you're like, oh wow, okay, yeah, there has been like a there's been like a big shift, a really big shift in like the way that these characters are clothed. Yeah, I'm not sure what caused it, but a lot of the older Guilty Gear designs kind of fell into that category where they're like almost a little bit too much to look at. Like, all right, here we go. Here's what I'll do, right? I'll pull up like an old illustration of Soul Bad Guy. Right. Let's see, which one would be a good one? Okay, I think this one's from like the X-Art era. So this is like the game right before Strive. And then you have the one that's like Soul Bad Guy and Strive. And if you compare that, one to the other, there's like a lot of it looks the same, right? For example, the shoes and the pants, those are still very, very similar. But for example, you take a look at the shirt, it's still very skin tight. It's still got like a lot of belts around it and such. But I don't know how to put it. In this older one, it feels like the belts were like the emphasis of the outfit, but in this one, they I'm trying to piece together what I mean here, because I think the belts are definitely like my focal point. It's obviously not like the sole thing, right? For example, you can actually see that his waistline's a little bit thicker now. They're still ridiculous proportions, and the man's still built like a like an 18-wheeler in a Mini Cooper body. But hmm, there's a bigger sense of practicality. I think that's the main thing for me, at least, is that this belt on the forearm not really doing much, right? It's not pulling a whole lot of the weight. The belt on the chest there, you could say that it's to make sure the crop top jacket doesn't fly away, but it's being a little generous. On the other hand, you go back to this one. Okay, you've got one main belt for the jeans themselves. You got the bigger belt on top of that with the loincloth question mark. That one's still a bit excessive, but you can see here that in the jacket the belts are now positioned in a way that makes much more sense. So the middle part is some kind of zip up top, but you see belts like this in normal leather jackets, and you see like adjustments like this in other jackets as well. There are real world, there are more practical elements to this one than in the previous one, and that might be a loss. That might be what some people might have dug the old style better. Some people are probably still doing cool stuff, doing crazy stuff with that design ethos in mind. And without that design ethos, we wouldn't have the modern version of the outfit, right? It's all an iterative process. I know to be grateful for weird maximalist old school anime design. Those things are like my grandparents in terms of aesthetic sense. I mean, I remember one time I read this post where somebody was criticizing VTubers for being like repulsed by like cringe like animal OCs, and they're like, "Bro, chill, that's your cousin." Like be nice to them. Be nice to them. Everybody's sharing different inspirations from everybody else. So you got to be respectful and stuff. That being said, my favorite design choices are still the ones where you can kind of very clearly see where the inspiration came from. Like I said before, a lot of the writing things that I do is where how do I put this? Like I kind of borrow from like established mythology and like, ideas in already kind of in circulation, not to, kind of borrow wholesale, but to use as shorthand and as inspiration for like what kind of archetype I'm going for and how I'm going to use that archetype. I definitely had a point I was going to make, but I forgot what I was saying. Hmm. Okay. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's easier to learn more if you try to understand the hype behind something. Okay, and then maybe even select these guys again. Hold on. I'm just going to try and select these guys real quick. Copy that. Never mind. I just lost my sometimes when you a neat but risky maneuver you can do is that if you want to try something or like you want to go back and copy something, you can just undo until you're back at the point where you need to copy it, and then just redo everything once you've copied it. However, it is a very risky maneuver because you also have the chance to like lose what you're using. I forgot. Yeah, I lost my clipboard. It's okay though. I think I put it back to where it was. Mostly, probably, potentially. We shall see. Okay, let's go back to the object tool. I need to use a mouse for this. That's the only way I'll have sufficient control. Okay. Then a little further down. Okay. Push this a little bit further forward. No, that doesn't seem quite right. Yeah, there's too much slack up here. All right, let's try something else. Okay, like this. And bring this up here. Thankfully, the sleeve is covering up the first buckle back here, so I can just reuse this at my own leisure. You know, maybe with a couple tweaks here and there, though. Yeah, the only downside is that there was a little tangent there, but that's easy enough to fix. That being said, there we go. That makes more sense for the perspective. Okay, there we go. Okay. Finally, I think that makes sense. Hopefully. Well, we gotta be positive about these things. Okay, let's stretch these guys out a little bit. Alley-oop. Okay, we can redo the bottom part here. Okay, there we go. And after that, we are not finishing this one tonight, fellas. Well, that's life sometimes. Besides, having more time to color this one in will be a kind of long-term benefit. Got some funky ideas for how I should go about it. Okay, put this up a little bit forward. Then grab this part. Thin this out way lots. And then put it back. Okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna have to reallocate the elbow here. Wouldn't make sense for the perspective. Now, what I really wish I could do was I wish I could use the liquefy tool in vector layers, because then I would be truly unstoppable. Let's see. Okay, shift this here. Uh-oh, I got rid of the whole thing. Let me just put that back real quick. That reminds me that that reminds me that for when you start a fight as Faust, so, you get different phrases based on like who you're fighting, and like it's a little randomized line at the beginning of the fight when the game starts. And one of Faust's lines is "replace everything," and a friend of mine pointed out that like that's basically him saying "throw the whole man out." Just start from scratch. And that's really funny to me. Bro's like situation is unsalvageable. It reminds me a little bit of the phrase that I read once. It's like, there's a lot to unpack here, but we might as well throw away the whole suitcase. Listen, sometimes to retain your own peace of mind, you gotta be a little bit of a hater. I've learned this. If you learn where to apply the phrase "this is not my problem" in the right places at the right time, your life will know peace. Yeah, that's something that I kind of had to learn the hard way. I was always getting up in everybody else's business. Now I just try to stay out of it as much as I can to the greatest extent that I can. Let me take another look at the reference. Okay, no, he does have a little bit more meat on him than that. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Yeah. That reminds me of this one really funny thing that I read. A long time ago, I played this gacha game called Fate Grand Order. And one of the characters there is this guy called Dr. Roman. And by virtue of being like the only surviving dude of like the research staff after the prologue of the game, he kind of runs everything now. So people summarize it as kind of like this. He's like, not my circus, not my monkeys. And, suddenly like the director of the institute dies and he's like, oh shit, I guess it is my circus now. And then, the rest of the staff start dying and he's like, oh fucking those are my monkeys, what the hell? That poor bastard. I thought you were gonna mention some little indie game, and then you say the word Fate Grand Order. I know. I am so sorry. Listen, I promise I don't do gacha games no more. I've long since escaped that poison. Although I really am sorry that you had that kind of whiplash moment. I'm sorry. I don't have anything to be sorry about, but I do feel like I should apologize even so. And if you think about it, those are my monkeys, and this is now my circus. It's kind of like the entire plotline of the Pikmin series. Okay, then like this. I don't know. Some people have been posting designs for like the new summer event, which servants have dropped. I really like Oberon's new design. I especially like that one like scrunched up face he makes. Hang on, let me see if I can find a picture of it. It's a really good face. Let's see. Hang on, where's this like expression sheet? Where's the gallery on this thing? Dialogue, interlude. Nope, it's not in there. Images, here we go. Oh yeah, here it is. Get a load of this expression. He is so angry. Like this is like some very specific. This is like a very specific kind of murderous intent that you just don't get from. Like this is a murderous intent of a very unwell man. Like that is the dam about to break. This is like the last thing you see before you as a bystander have to participate have to are subject to like life-changing amounts of violence. He's just so mad. And what for? Yeah, the something is wrong type face. A lot of these are just really good. Like, a lot of these are just like nice expressions. The artist for Oberon is very good at like making these, has a very distinct kind of like watercolor-esque style. And then you have this, where it looks like he just ate a lemon laced with arsenic. God, I I haven't kept up with the story of Fate Grand Order. I don't know what Oberon's deal is. I know he's got some sort of thing going on, but he's just such a funny little guy. I can't help but get endeared to him. I have no doubts that he would try to kill me the moment my back was turned, but that's his decision to make. Hmm. Boy, how long have I spent on this arm alone? Yeah, sometimes what I've learned that helps is to take a little bit of a step back. I remember reading the other day this guy's tutorial for rendering, and one of the points that he made very, very clear is that like during this rendering stage, if you're using like a blur tool or like some kind of like blending tool in order to make some of the colors move together a little bit more smoothly, you don't want to be too zoomed in. Like he was very adamant that you actually like zoom out quite a lot. And that's because, and at first I was like, well, that's a little bit weird. But then I understood. I understood that the reason he recommended to do it like that is because then what ends up happening is that you have, what the purpose of blending really is to make it the viewer of whatever you're making follow the shapes of everything more easily. That's kind of like the purpose of blending. Just create easy to follow shapes. Taking advantage of color. So it makes more sense to have like a zoomed out perspective on that than to have one that's like super zoomed in. I really felt like I gained something that when I read that. I mean, granted, sometimes it is just very difficult, and there's no right or wrong answer. But you know, every single tool that you get that you get at your disposal as an artist is something valuable. You don't know when you're going to use it. You don't know if you'll even remember it when you need to use it. But you might end up using it, and that's useful enough. And heck, it might not even be you. It might be somebody else who needs it eventually. And you'll have what it takes to guide them through it. Let me take a look at this dude's biceps and such in the reference image. Okay, non-existent. Useful to know. That actually makes my life a little bit easier. And that is because I can just kind of reach over here, expand this. Yeah, no, I am way overthinking this. See, taking a step back worked. Sometimes it really is as simple as that. And then a little bit like this. And a little bit like that. Very good. What if I lowered this part too? Like, I feel like I need to raise this part and lower this part, if that makes sense. All right, now let's take a look at where the suture marks are. Okay, right around here. I do have a very soft spot for, these kind of suture marks where it looks like somebody stapled them together with just very thick staples. I have always wondered if they didn't make staple machines that could staple multiple staples at once. Like some kind of like industrial strength one. There's probably a market for that. Although I reckon at that point you might as well just like bind it together with something sturdier. Make it into a brochure or something. Okay, there we go. I love drawing like hands with freakishly long fingers. There is something very satisfying about it. I don't know. I think it's because normally hands are a little bit stubbier than we'd like, and it's a bit difficult to get the full. Should I say? It's almost like cubism, really. Like you are able to appreciate like the full extent of the anatomy in one go, because there's just a lot of ground to cover. I don't know. I don't know if cubism's really good for that though. It's just the best. It's just the best comparison that I had. I had to get more classically educated in art, in terms of just like what movements there are and what specific things they brought with them, what their specific advantages were, their pros and cons, if you will. I had to memorize the type matchups for different art. Like a contemporary artist can beat a Dadaist, but like a cubist might not be able to might be able to defeat a contemporary artist. If nothing else, we know that people who used to carve marble statues are probably built like dump trucks, so they could probably take on anybody in terms of physical strength. I don't know, how strong do you need to be to chisel stuff out of marble? I don't imagine it's easy work by any stretch of the imagination, but I also can't imagine it being too taxing in that you would have to be super strong and perhaps still be able to smack and retain that kind of a finesse, right? Like you needed to have a certain degree of a light touch for that sort of thing, and I don't imagine that belonging to like a dude who could bench press a small cart of horses. There's probably a story of some dude who was too strong to become a marble carver. Like he was like going to I don't know, Athens or something to study the ways of carving into marble because he was one of the strongest kids in his town and he had a big gift for putting together clay statues, and he thought I shall surely be able to smith stone and to fashion it into something similar. And then he gets to the training hall where they start teaching them. He grabs a chisel and then he just cuts the chisel straight through the rock like a knife through butter, and they have to kick him out because he keeps just really eating through marble. Marble's expensive, even back when it was more plentiful. I don't know, is marble more plentiful now than before? Certainly, we have more like access to marble. I feel, if back in the day you either lived near a place that made marble or you didn't, and if you didn't, then that meant that it was stupid expensive to get at. Now the only thing that's stupid expensive is probably the land prices. Marble itself might not run you too much. Of course, I imagine that also depends on like what type of marble you're going for. Like for example, different woods can have different costs. That is something that can happen, I believe. Lately, while doing my work, I've been listening to more Talking Heads, and I really like Nothing But Flowers. That's quickly become one of my favorite songs of theirs. It's a funny song. What it is about a guy who is describing like this post apocalyptic utopia almost, where now everything's been overgrown. Everything has like there's no more electricity, no more gasoline, but there's plenty of trees. There's plenty of nature. And at first he's like, "Yo, this is dope," but then eventually he's like, "Wait, no. Now I remember like toaster strudels. Oh no, now I'm sad." That's kind of funny. Yeah, we've gained a lot of creature comforts. I don't know what the future holds, but I do hope we'll be able to hang on to at least a few of them. I know we had takeout food as early as the Roman days, so it's not unthinkable to believe that, like, in some kind of post-apocalyptic utopian green paradise. I don't know why it has to be post-apocalyptic. Things can just happen sometimes. It doesn't necessarily have to be an apocalypse. Not to mention, there's a very kind of strong finality to an apocalypse, isn't there? It's hardly ever the end of things when it's the end of things. I bet lots of people throughout history thought they were alive during the time the world was ending, and, then it just kept turning. So I'll take comfort in that sort of thing. Okay, there we go. Then what's next is probably the rest of the scalpel. I kind of want to make the scalpel like much bigger than it actually is because it's not, it is by no means small in the original design, but I kind of want to make it like almost like a Guandao. Pole arms are so choice. I always appreciate a good pole arm. Again, I'm definitely more of a martial arts guy in general, but there's nice things I can say about like most melee stuff. But I don't know. I've got a real soft spot for pole arms. I remember that when I was very young, I played a game called Bastion, made by Supergiant Games, the same people who made Hades. And one of the weapons in that game was this pike that I really liked playing with. I loved playing with the pike. I like playing the game with the pike. So I think that's kind of like where it started. Before that, I was like 100% on Team Swords, but after that, I was a little bit more evenly split. I don't know. I feel like if you get I feel like a person's weapon of choice for a medieval weapon can tell you a lot about their personality. You know, I don't think I would ever actually go for a sword. Like if I had my pick, and if that pick was restricted, I think I would definitely pick the sword last. There's like a lot of other ones that work. Like a mace, for example. If I don't get a pike, I would like a mace. In particular, bar maces are kind of cool. I like those a lot. I need to make this part right here a little bit higher and a little bit thinner. Yeah, I know the Chinese had this weapon called the Sword Breaker, which is essentially a bar mace that was attached to a normal sword head. Big old hammer, very nice. Yeah, big old hammers are so much fun too. Yeah, big old war hammer, bigger than yourself. Just swinging that thing around your head. So much fun. Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do with a lot of different flavors. Again, I'm not particularly knocking any one of them, but like now that I've had a taste of like a new world, it's like I can't go back to just swords. I can't. I won't. All right, I need to adjust the line width on this inner part. There we go. This part here I want to thin down a little bit more though. Conversely, this part over here I want to thicken. Okay, and then we narrow down this inner part right here. And we might almost like push that outward. Simplify vector line, here we go. And then that's a straight line. Alrighty, I can work with that. Simplify this one too. Oh, I see. That's a corner point. That's why it's like that. We can just get rid of that. There we go. Now we have a nice lean curve. Okay, grab this, twist it around a little bit like this. Okay. And just bring these guys a little bit closer over here. Can I simplify this thing again? It's a bit hard to see it from here. Does that work? Yeah, that'll do. The perspective on this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, though. I just push this one even closer to the edge here. Okay, then over here. We could just remove this line. No. It definitely adds something. I just need to figure out what it is so I can emphasize it. Okay. So then this part. I don't know, is the back part of a scalpel also sharp? I feel like it would have to be, right? If that's the case, and I need to stop thinking about this thing as like, as, you know, kind of like the back edge of a knife and more like an edge of its own. I'd say that scalpels would have to have the back edges sharpened as well, because like, what happens if you're trying to like get it out? You can't really suffer a blunt edge if that's the case. At least I hope you don't. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, I'm a bag of rice. Let's see. I remember I had a friend of mine who was going to go into medicine. Yeah, he did this summer camp where they essentially taught them like the basics of everything, you know, like suturing, stuff like that, using pig skin instead of human skin. Because, you know, no matter how nice your summer camp is, they're not going to flay someone alive just for you to practice your stitches. Sadly. My apologies to all the aspiring medical camp goers whose fantasies I've just ruined. In any case, let's see. Okay, this part here is a lot thicker than I originally thought. Oh wait, now how? Okay, 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth part is just the actual group. Okay, I can wing that. Okay. Ah. Just draw a really big line and then we'll work on it from there. Might have to simplify this sucker too. Okay, and then move this part over here. Perfect. Then we just need to do that 3 more times. Really 2.5. Okay. Perfect. Okay, then after that, I reckon it's about time to call it a night. Let's see. Got some good progress done today. I'm much happier with the perspective. That was the main thing that I wanted to get through was the perspective. But yeah, good work out there. I think I'm just gonna end stream here for tonight. Thanks everybody who stopped by. Thank you for the company, and I will see you all next week. I will find some new schedule to whip up. Enjoy your weekend. Later. Bye.